Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my walk and talk with Giacomo. Um, Change of scenery today. I'm actually working, and therefore I'm in between. And I figure I had a little time to do this. I actually planned it a little to be here a little bit earlier, so that I was on location. I could run anytime I want. But anyway, listen. First of all, I want to apologize to my listeners that about last week. I didn't do my walk and talk. There was a lot of crap going on the news, and it kind of affected me a little psychologically, and I just did not have the spiritual awakening that I wanted or that I needed to be able to have a pleasant conversation. So therefore, I'm rectifying, and I'm going to do the best I can here because, to be honest with you, I do prefer the setting of the quietness. I'm at the Summerlin Center, and it's not exactly peaceful. A lot of distractions, cars, people walking around, temptation of coffees and donuts and food, and Anyway, I'm gonna try to avoid everything. Put my parasol on here, and do the best I can. But anyway, listen. First of all, the purpose of this walk and talk was to rectify a my last video, which was 2 weeks ago. My last video was basically about breakups, and the intentions were good, but what turned out to be was not so good because it turned out to be a rant, and that is not what I had in mind. Unfortunately, you start saying things, and like I I don't do the scripted. I just go, and sometimes I kind of lose my train of thought. But anyway, what particularly happened that day is that I got a little emotional, and therefore, I guess my emotions got the best of me, and what was supposed to be a positive outlook on breakups turned out to be a very negative outlook about breakups, and I might have hurt someone, and it was not my intention to do so. So I'm going to try my very best to be able to rectify that, and if nothing else, it'll make me feel better. So, how does this come about? We start saying things, and one word leads to another, emotion comes out. Next thing you know, you're completely off track, and you're not talking about or making the points that you want to make. So, look, I meditate almost every morning, and this morning, when I was meditating, I follow a certain routine. I follow certain steps. And at one point, I asked myself if there's something in my life that I want to change or something that I want to do better. And for some reason, what came to mind was the word resentment. And therefore, I kind of meditated on that. I kind of came to the conclusion that I resent certain things that happen to me, like we all do. We all have some form of resentment. But does resentment actually do us any good? No. Because at the end of the day, you resent somebody, you're the one feeling that way, not the other person. I mean, they might have resentments of their own, but it has nothing to do with you because you can't control the other person. You can only control yourself. So therefore, holding resentment against somebody does not do you any good. So therefore, the best thing to do is to tackle it and question it and find out why you are being resentful. So, a lot of times we live lives and we have certain relationships with people that we love, with lovers or people that we see in different ways than than normal. And we have certain expectations, and our expectations are usually the same for everybody, which basically are you know happiness, a loving relationship, a future. And when things don't work out, we kind of our first reaction, or for the majority, I'm not going to put myself as judge of the world, but for the most part, the first reaction is one of resentment. Now, why do you hold resentment? You hold resentment because the outcome was not what you planned, and you didn't get the closure that you wanted. And therefore, you resent this person because you think that they have harmed you. And therefore, you're unable to come to grips with it. And therefore, you carry this thing inside of you, and it builds. And at a certain point, giving the opportunity, and my walk and talk is like, if it's not controlled, it's like the perfect opportunity to do so. We end up ranting. And therefore, nothing good comes out of that because you just relive those moments over and over because we focus, as human beings, we have the tendency to focus on negatives more than we focus on the positives. We live a life that a lot of us, okay, me included to some extent, we live a life that we are afraid of the unknown. And therefore, one of our primal instincts is that in search of security. Okay. And therefore, a lot of times we give up on the things that might make us happy because we're not sure, we're uncertain. And fear comes in, which is another primal instinct that us human beings have. And therefore, we kind of prefer living the life that we know, which at least we're familiar with it, and it can't get any worse than that, right? At least that is what we think. But what we don't realize is that we keep on living a life of mediocrity, a life of insecurity, a life of fear, an unhappy life. And we have two choices, right? Because we always have at least two choices in life. One, we keep on living the life that we know. Or two, we make that leap of faith and we hope for the better. Now, if you are a person that is insecure, you're a planner, you are looking for something that someone else is going to give you, then you're going to be disappointed. And therefore, in order to avoid that disappointment, you keep on doing what you're doing. So you're living a third of a life of unhappiness, a life of routine, hoping that tomorrow it'll be a little bit better. Now, then there's people like me that we take on life head on. Okay, yes, we do. I mean, don't get me wrong. We do our math and we do have our reasoning, but for the most part, we're a little bit more. We take a little bit more risks, and therefore, we kind of sometimes we do things, and myself, sometimes they have worked out, other times they have not. But I'd rather live a life where I try something. I'd rather live a life where I gave something a chance. That the outcome is much much better than what it is that I am living right now. So let's say you're stuck in a 9 to 5 job, okay, and you don't like your job. You don't like your boss. You don't like your coworkers. You hate getting up in the morning and having to be there in that place that when you get there, you just, you feel like all the energy is just draining out of your knees. So, what you do, at least somebody like me, is going to look for alternatives. And the alternatives come in being self employed, waking up on your own any morning. And guess what? I wake up at 4 every morning. If I had a 9 to 5 job, I would be waking up at 9, right? If I was stop, I'm done, done. My day is over. I did what I had to do. But is that going to give me a happy life? No. In my case, no, because I am not like that. I was a really, really bad employee. I mean, yes, I know things, but I just didn't click with the work environment. So therefore, at a certain point, when the opportunity was right, I decided, what, I'm going to work on my own. I'm going to discipline myself, and I'm going to do the best that I possibly can do. So, do I have any regrets? No, absolutely not. Am I always constant? Absolutely not. I mean, I have my bad days, I have my bad months, I have my bad years. Okay, but that doesn't mean you stop and you just give up. So, because giving up is basically what is going to, sometimes you give up when things are about to happen. Now, imagine that. You have everything is working in a certain direction, and all of a sudden you give up because you just don't have the will of doing. But what do you know? Maybe on the other side of that corner, there was the right person, the right job, the right future waiting for you. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit off track here, but I think it was important to mention that we are creatures of habit. And we'd rather live a life where we know what it's like rather than tackle it and hit it straight on and hope for the best, correct? So instead, we end up staying where we are. And a lot of times in our relationships, most relationships, I mean, those that have a good relationship, I really, God bless you, really, because the majority of people, yes, they have a good relationship. Everybody has their role. You work, you clean, you eat, you drink, you go to bed, you have sex sometimes, and you think that it's the best of it, but at the end, that's not really what it is that you're supposed to be living for. You're supposed to be living for happiness. Happiness, that is the word. You're supposed to live a life where it doesn't matter if you're rich. Okay, this is not about being rich. It's about waking up in the morning with a smile and drinking your coffee, breathing and breathing that air that that inspires you, that makes you grow, that makes you feel good. Now, if you live a life of routine, you get up in the morning, you're already grumpy to begin with, and you have your coffee, and you complain that it's too hot, or you're having that cigarette that for some reason it turned on their off, it turned off on their own. Everything that happens is a negative when you live a life that is built that way. So instead, you build yourself a life where uncertainty is going to happen. You are going to have problems. You are going to have shortcomings, and sometimes the results are not there. But you're trying. You're giving your life a chance. You want to get better, and with a little bit of discipline and reality that not everything is going to work out perfectly, because there is no such thing as perfection in our life. Because if we see our life as being imperfect, then we are never going to achieve the things that we want to achieve, because we're never going to be happy. And that starts with you. You need to be happy. If you want to share yourself with the world and make somebody else happy, then you need to be happy yourself. Because otherwise, you're just going to transmit negativity. You're going to transmit problems. You're going to transmit this feeling that it's just, and therefore, you're not going to be able to make anybody happy. If you don't make yourself happy, how the hell do you expect to make somebody else happy? Now, I'm not saying that my life is perfect. Like I said, there's no perfection. I'm not saying that everything that I do works out to be the best. Absolutely not. I have my my share of grievances, and I have my share of failures, and I have my shares of success as well. So what do? You build on your success. You don't build on your failures. You forget about your failures. Your failures, you learn from your failures. Okay, I did this. I tried this. It didn't work out. Okay, let's change it. Let's tweak it. Let's move a little bit to the right or to the left, or but going straight, it's not going to work, because you're just repeating what it is that you've been doing. So going back to resentment, that was a big pause, right? Look, it was not my intention to rant. It was not my intention to hurt. It was not my intention to make myself feel better or be the better person, because I am not the better person. I have so many flaws that I can't even count on myself. But I try my best to, when I make a mistake, I try my best to rectify it and to at least make myself feel good. I might not be able to change someone else's thoughts, but I could change the way that I perceive it, the way that I feel, the way that makes me feel better, makes me feel like I tried, makes me feel that I gave it my best shot. Okay, and that in itself is a victory. That in itself is a victory that you could pin a medal on. No one else might see it, but nobody needs to see it because you don't live a life hoping that somebody sees the things that you do good. If you do good, you're going to feel good, and good things are going to happen to you. Instead, if you live a life where you are basically aiming to manipulate, or you're aiming to to make someone else do things that they don't like to do, or they don't receive it, or they don't answer to, you're being a bad person, and you're not being real. But anyway, come to grips with the fact that we're not flawless. We all have our faults. We all have our pet peeves. We all have the things that we're not really proud of. And what do? You know, you, those of us that inspire to make the world a better place, to make yourself a better place. We work towards making things better in our own little world. We at least try to live a life where, you know what, I fucked up, okay? But I'm doing this to change it. I'm trying my best to be able to fix something that is broken. And if you're able to convey that message to yourself, your life is going to be much, much better. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope I was able to help someone. Said, hey, I'm just a guy trying to figure things out. So I guess I'll see you next Friday. In the meanwhile, be safe and be kind.